For any trade union, before any union can embark on industrial action, such union must have lobby, do all sorts of things to get the attention of the government. There are procedures to follow before the strike, and all these procedures were to be let. That 2009 agreement that was not even looked into, because 2009 that agreement should be renewed at every 5 years. You agree with me? This is 2009 to date. Is the agreement not long overdue for the renegotiation? Nothing of such, is happening. Then our national leaders followed the process. We embark on the strike to call the attention of the federal government to all those issues in year 2022. We started the strike, I think, around March in 2022. So we were on strike for 4 months. Now, is it possible to shift the goalpost at the middle of the day? Having fulfilled all the procedures that we need to fulfill before we embark on the strike, we are now saying no work, no pay. Different MOUs, different MOAs were signed by the time the government, under the leadership of President Muhammadu Buhari, the Minister of Labour, Tᴏɪᴛᴛᴇʀ, the Minister of Education, Adamu, they were all involved. Different MOUs, different MOAs, and none of these MOUs and MOAs were looked into. As a government, a responsible government who signed an MOU, an MOA with the union, such government should fulfill all what they signed.
All right. Thank you very much.
Strike,
yeah.
Let me have it.
Okay.
When we were on strike, the then speaker, Honorable Miller, intervened, mediated between the government and the non-teaching, union of the university. And in fact, if any union should be considered at all, it should be non-teaching staff of the university. Because President Bola Ahmed Tinubu gave the presidential waiver for all the unions in the university. We were surprised when it was the time for the payment. The so-called Honorable President Miller went ahead and approved for the teaching staff.
What means that all of the negotiations that was done with the federal government were done jointly. So I mean that both the teaching and the academic, the academic and non-academic unions went together, to negotiate, and all members of these unions were properly represented at the meetings. The ones that eventually led to the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu signing the waiver and asking that 4 months, payments be made to this union. So how come ASUU are the only beneficiaries of this particular waiver? What official justification have been presented to your union for this particular exclusion?
Well, up to this moment, they have not had any reason for such action. So we don't know any joint agreement. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu covers all the unions at the university.
Right. Okay. So far so good. Nothing has been said by the federal government or all the relevant stakeholders about why SANU and NASU have not been paid. Nothing have been said so far.
So far, we have not had anything. Even though I had a rumor that our leadership has been called for a meeting, and that has not been confirmed yet. So I wouldn't know if they are meeting them today. But we are still waiting for them.
Okay. Well, speaking about things that have been heard, the president, SANU, for example, Comrade Mohammed Ibrahim, is quoted to have said in a recent interview that the affected unions, approached the Minister of State for Education and even wrote to the Chief of Staff. But the minister seemed oblivious as to why SANU and NASU and others had been excluded from the payment. So have you considered that maybe this might have been some sort of breakdown in communication, or that these payments are being made gradually and you should afford them the luxury of time? Maybe they're paying in tranches and they would soon pay, NASU and SANU as well as all of the other involved unions.
That's why I don't know if you are aware that we gave them 7 days. We gave 7 days of the last week. I mean, it ended last week Friday or so. Then we embarked on the 7 days rolling strike. All this time, all this period is for them to listen to us, to create awareness that the non-teaching staff are not happy with the step the federal government has taken. So I want to believe all this period is enough for a listening government to wedge in and resolve the matter.
All right. Well, thank you very much. In case you're just joining us, I'm having a conversation with Comrade Yinka Abiodun. He's the NASU chairman, UNILAG, and we're having a conversation about the 7-day warning strike that is currently being embarked upon by SANU and NASU, the non-academic unions that have not been paid the 4-month arrears that the President Bola Tinubu asked to be paid to them. All of this stems from the October 2022 strike, where former President Muhammadu Buhari decided to invoke the no work, no pay policy, and then 8 months of salaries and emolument have not been paid to these unions. But then the president is saying, pay them 4 months. Let's do a partial waiver so that, they can continue to operate within the universities. But for some reason, the non-academic unions have been excluded from the payment. Only ASU at this time have received the 4 months payment. And so we're talking to a representative of NASU who's explaining to us the progress that's being made with the industrial action that is being embarked upon. Today is day 3. They started on Monday. So, sir, I would like to ask you, the Office of the Accountant General through the IPPIS, they've been accused of having a hand in this misunderstanding, right? The insinuation that ASU has been prioritized over the non-academic unions, hence the decision to pay them first with no word on when the others will get their payment. Is this a sentiment you align with, or do you maybe have a contrary opinion?
I may not be able to say that if IPPIS or Accountant General or whatever are trying to do anything contrary to the federal government. I think they just follow the directive of the federal government. That's the way I see it. So if not, if the federal government says they should pay the teaching and non-teaching of the university, they will get salary. Who is IPPIS? Who is Accountant General? Will now say, I'm not going to pay the non-teaching staff. Basically, I believe that because the federal government that gives directive.
So you believe the federal government that gave the directive that ASU be paid? You don't believe that any instruction was given to the Accountant General to pay the non-academic unions?
I don't believe so.
You don't believe so? Okay, so how far are you willing to take this industrial action? Varsity activities across the country have been grounded. I'm pretty sure that's the event UNILAG as well. Exams in some schools have been halted and some students are back home. There are no assurances as to when they would resume school. So if after the 7 days ultimatum given to the federal government elapses, what should we expect to be the next line of action from your union?
Well, I said it earlier, there are procedures to follow when it comes to industrial action. This is 7 days running strike. We are going to, resume work on Monday, I don't say. We will, at the national level, the warning strike will be reviewed, and if the government is not paying attention to our request, then I think there are other ways to go. We might end up going for 14 days or 21 days on strike today till we we are not going to look back again.
Well, many people will say that a lot of these unions have always, used strike actions as a way to cajole the federal government to listen to their demands. But then, I dare say, at least based on the facts that we have, history, antecedent, that a lot of times it just happens that meetings are called, new negotiations are being made, new promises are being made, and nothing is done. I mean, we still have reference to the NLC protest, the one that was suspended on the second day. I don't think there's really any item on the MOU that was signed with the NLC that has been achieved up until this very moment. So do you have considerations for other techniques to engage the government aside from these strike actions? Maybe new strategies that you can use to get the government to listen to you without embarking on strike so that, students are not badly affected by this fracas?
Well, my dear sister,
yes.
The truth is that we don't even want the strike to come up at all. There are other, of course, before we could embark on the strike, there are other things now, there are other ways to go about it. That if the government is listening, we lobby, we negotiate, we agitate, we give all sorts of things. That's part of the procedural process before any trade union embark on strike. Now, strike is the only language that the government understands. And strike is the only weapon, the last weapon that the union, has. So we are not just waking up, yesterday and say, we are going on strike. It doesn't work that way. And the strike is for government to wake up from their slumber, meaning that they have been sleeping. Or the relevant agencies have been sleeping. They are not responding. They are not, not the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu cannot be everywhere. That's why he has ministers. So the strike is for government to wake up from their slumber.
Comrade, I understand that you don't necessarily begrudge ASU. Your counterpart ASU is really not, they have nothing to do with that. They got the money, they're just lucky that they got paid. But then, have you received any form of support? Have they shown any form of solidarity to the non-academic unions? Because just like you said, the non-academic unions are just as important as the academic unions, because administrative activities, constitute the entire component of the education structure in the country. If there are no hostels, there's no electricity, there's nobody at the gate, it's no way lectures will hold at all. So has ASU in any form or manner shown solidarity to the affected unions?
Well, of course, through the social media, I saw a news saying that ASU back non-teaching staff, for the government to release the request salary. Of course, that's solidarity move. So that's solidarity. They are giving us solidarity support. No doubt about that.
So, speaking of solidarity, the NLC as well, the Nigeria Labour Congress have been showing unwavering support to this cause. And in fact, they've urged the federal government to expeditiously pay their outstanding salaries. Would you say that this public backing by the NLC would, in a way, elicit a more rapid response from the government? Don't forget that the NLC and the government are still in their own tussle at this time. We haven't heard any update regarding the conversations with NLC and the government. But do you think the NLC supporting, the non-academic unions in a way would cause the federal government to pay more attention to the demands and pay the backlog of the salaries as signed by the president?
Well, of course, we have updated to NLC, and NLC have also made a statement, by telling the federal government to listen to our requests and pay our request salary. So that's all that the NLC has been talking. I think it's on Monday or Tuesday or thereabouts.
All right. Well, I understand that, you're on your feet and the strike is actually, in progress amongst other things. And like you said, I know that the papers reported this morning that the federal government has called for a meeting. But according to you, you have not verified that information for any meeting whatsoever. So you don't know about any meeting that was set by the federal government.
Well, at this moment, I've not had positive, report about that.
All right. Well, I would appreciate you. I thank you so very much for the time that you've been able to afford us on the show. Thank you so very much. As new information comes through, I hope that we're able to catch you so that you can give us, straight from the horse's mouth, we can get information regarding the agreements that is reached by the non-academic unions and the federal government. Comrade Yinka Abiodun, thank you so very much and have a wonderful evening. Chairman, going on today in the papers, we heard information that the federal government had called for a meeting, between representatives of SANU and NASU, so they can reach a common ground. But here we're having the chairman NASU Unilag saying he has no idea about any meeting of the sort. As at this very moment, he doesn't know about any meeting whatsoever, and that's why we're asking questions. If after the 7-day elapses, what is the next line of action? And he says, well, there are procedures, and they're going to have to go to the next phase of the strike. It will no longer be a warning strike. They would have to find something else to do to get the federal government to understand how serious they are about this particular situation. And he says that, ASU is currently supporting them. ASU being the only union, that's the academic union, that have been able to get the payment of the 4-month arrears. They've been showing support, they've been showing solidarity, so I guess that's a good thing. The NLC is also saying something about this, that's a good thing. But unfortunately, the students that are affected by this grounding of activities in universities do not have any good tales to tell, because like I said, in some universities, exams have been suspended. And if this goes on for too long, we might see students who have to spend more time than expected in universities. I, for one, I spent 7 years to study a 5-year course because of industrial actions like this one, and it is the reality of the Nigerian student at this time because of the struggle between the federal government and the academic unions, which is quite unfortunate. As a matter of fact, I actually want us to hear what the SANU president Ibrahim Mohammed, what he said at an interview, a television interview. That's the Senior Staff Association of Nigerian Universities, SANU. The president, Mohammed Ibrahim, had something to say on an interview on TV just a few days ago, and I want us to hear that before we segue to the other part of the conversations that we're going to have today on the Situation Room. Please don't go anywhere.
It's a case of clear injustice that 4 unions went on strike, and then we suspended the strike based on agreements reached with government officials. And here the president grants a waiver, and then only one part of the unions were paid. So we drew the attention of those that matter, because we realized that we felt that it was an error somehow, because we could not fathom how such a misnomer could happen. But what is becoming disturbing is that upon all the assurances made by the Minister of Education and officials of the ministry, it remains mute, as far as the Office of the Accountant General is concerned. So we do not really understand how the Accountant General operates, whether she was directed to only pay ASU, and because they need to come out and clarify. Because like you said, we cannot understand the President and Commander-in-Chief of the country will give an order, and then someone somewhere is subverting that order. And that's why during our National Executive Council in Akure a week ago, we did mention that we sent some saboteurs in this government, because this is unthinkable actually. As of today, all our workers in registry, bursary, works and maintenance, security, students affairs, will withdraw. Have withdrawn their services, and with nothing loose within the administration of any public university in Nigeria, and that will be the case for the next 7 days until and unless the needful is done.
Well, Well, there you have it. That is the voice of the SANU president, the Senior Staff Association of Nigerian University, Mohammed Ibrahim, who's saying that they remain resolute and they're still trying to understand why only ASU was paid. Why is ASU the only beneficiary of that waiver? And they still haven't gotten concrete answers. They've gotten no concrete justification. They've approached the accountant general. They've written to the chief of staff. They've written to relevant stakeholders. But for some reason, nobody is able to provide an answer. Today's day 3 of the strike. Universities' activities are grounded, and of the strike, no longer. Well, of course, to provide you water to our national health of issues. Of course, we're going to bring that conversation to the fore in just a few minutes. My name is Sage Babalola. Please stick around. The Situation Room continues.
Things seem anxious and uncertain. I understand the hardship you face. I wish there were other ways, but yes, not. If there were.
In our quest to bring to the table issue-based conversation around nationhood and development, we have made 4 to 5:30 p.m. Monday to Friday the perfect time to welcome you into the Situation Room as we continue to build the narrative about public service and accountability.
Mr. President, this Senate needs to know. Mr. President, this Senate needs to lend its voice to the plight of these people. Mr. President, there is nowhere I can say it except here. This is why I'm elected. If I cannot say these things on this floor, sir, I better resign and leave.
As elections give the citizens the chance to make their political decisions, constant demand for quality leadership from those they voted into office.
Look at us, man, there is nothing. We are starving. We should please do something.
It's also important to having a Nigeria of everyone's dream. Join Ōpeyemi Akinyode as it takes to task seasoned analysts, opinion makers, business professionals, and politicians on issues around politics, policies, governance, and leadership. Every Monday to Friday from 4 to 5:30 p.m. on your super dial, Mainland 98.3 FM will welcome you your next as we discuss the situations.
Mainland 98.3 FM. Don't touch the dial. 98.3 FM. Don't touch the dial.
Sound of Lagos. My name is Days of Conversations, talking about academic union. At least 2 of the major to connect with on the show. Now, amidst lingering terrorism across the country, it's no longer news that the porosity of the Nigerian borders with other countries have been a major setback in fighting the scourge. The country's porous borders have made it easily accessible to terrorists and bandits who commit mayhem in border communities and by extension the whole of the country. The ineffective control and management of Nigeria's borders have become a serious concern to citizens, especially those living around the border towns. Now, over the years, the government have been confronted with the problem of ensuring effective border security, and the porous border situation has led to an increase in criminality, particularly transnational crimes like smuggling of illegal goods, the illegal movement of persons, money laundering, theft, kidnapping, terrorism, amongst other things. Now, in the next 30 to 40 minutes, we would delve into the various factors that contribute to porous borders. We're going to talk about the impact that this has on security, the effect it has on food availability, migration patterns, and even some of the efforts that are being made at both the regional and international level to endeavor that our security is looked into. And to join me in this particular conversation, I'm going to be joined by security consultant Chief Darlington Umoru. He'll be joining us virtually, and I'm actually trying to get him right now. Maybe what we're going to do is go on a very short break, and then we establish contact and come back on the show. But be aware that we're talking about porous borders, or border porosity, however you like, as the common denominator in the food crisis and insecurity that we're dealing with in the country. Please stay with us. Bear with me. These things happen, but I can assure you we are going to have a rather engaging conversation. This is still the Situation Room on Mainland 98.3 FM, the sound of Lagos. Don't go anywhere.
the clouds go gray. On the rose and the earth sings, the season's just beginning. Sunlight it hides as the clouds make way. For the pouring of my blessings, I will not be afraid. I see it now, I understand, I know. So I embrace it, dance in the rain, it's for my seed to grow. For every prayer and every seed I've sown, Lord of the harvest knows I'm looking back 100-fold. The land is green, it's green. Oh, oh.
Welcome back and thank you for staying with us. We have been successfully able to make contact with our guest. I know sometimes the connection can be it can be really difficult, but we have our guest with us virtually in the studio right now to talk to us about border porosity as the common denominator in the food crisis and security issues that we're dealing with in the country. I told you that security consultant Chief Darlington Umoru is going to talk to us about this particular matter. It's such a pleasure to have you here, Chief Darlington. Thank you so much for giving us your time of day. Hello. 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 Okay, I do not know what's happening with... Oh, perfect.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. Thank you. All right. Well, I have gone on ahead to, lay the foundation on which we're going to build this conversation for our listeners. And I guess it's safe for us to just proceed into the conversation straight away. Now, in discussing, some of the most prominent and recurrent problems in the country, like food crisis, insecurity, among other things, we've had the Nigerian borders. It has remained like a constant index. And Nigeria shares land borders with the Republic of Benin, to the west, Chad and Cameroon to the east, and I believe Niger to the north, right? We have about 6 or 7 northern states that actually share, border with Niger to the north. But before we start dissecting everything wrong with the activities around our borders, I want us to start by establishing what borders even represent. What do borders represent to the governing bodies of any nation? Sir?
Borders are boundaries between two countries. It could be, in this instance, I guess we are talking about boundaries between countries, but you also have that between communities, you also have that between states and all that. But in this instance, like you rightly said, Nigeria shares borders with 4 countries. Like you just rightly mentioned, Chad, Niger, Cameroon, and the Republic of Benin.
Hello?
Hello.
Okay, yes, I'm with you. I wanted to be sure that we still had connection with you. All right, well, I just wanted us to get that out of the way so that we can understand and appreciate the significance of borders and why the wrongs going on around the borders affects us so terribly as a nation. So let's talk about the security situation of the country, Chief Darlington. The rising insecurity in the country, from banditry to Boko Haram terrorists, the farmer-header clashes, and many more, all of this have been linked directly or indirectly, if you like, to the porosity of our Nigerian borders. At the height of unrest in the country, even the former Chief of Defense Staff, General Lucky Irabor, he alluded to the fact that we have about 137 unmanned borders in the north, and it's currently being exploited up until this very moment for a number of illegal activities. So, with the porosity of the Nigerian borders and the underlying factor that precipitates infiltration of terrorists and bandits, I want you to please highlight how our national security and our counter-terrorism efforts have been compromised because of the porosity of our borders.
Well, when you are even discussing border, let's even establish the fact that border management is in 2 parts. You have the areas that are manned by the security agencies and the paramilitary bodies. You also have the areas that are not manned. There's nowhere in the world, let me say this very clear and categorically, that there's nowhere in the world where any country can completely police our borders. Now, if you lined up this, you named 4 countries that Nigeria says border point with. If you lined up our customs servicemen, our immigration officers, the border patrol policemen, and the DSS, from the beginning of our border point to the end, they will not be able to police the entire border point between Nigeria and these 4 countries. So what does that leave you with? That tells you that there are still gray areas where apparently security agents might not necessarily be able to cover. Now, in the south, border points are very well policed, and you have structures that are in place to actually ensure that these border areas are very well policed. Even so, you still have some illegal border points in the south where some of these illegal routes, where some of these smugglers also follow, to try to beat security and smuggle in whatever they want to bring in. Down north, it is worse off. We remember at a point in time in the era of the Rabor under President Muhammadu Buhari, the former president, when at the time before the borders were shut down, the former president did make a confessional statement to this country, where he alluded to the fact that only God will be able to police most of these border points, particularly as regards the proliferation of small arms and light weapons.
Yes.
Now, these border points, smugglers are smart. They use the legal routes sometimes, and they try all kinds of things. There's what we call methods and techniques of arms smuggling. There's what we also refer to as methods and techniques of drug smuggling. The cartel, they do everything to beat security agents to be able to bring in their wares. And again, there are regional policies that also do not augur well with border point, policing of border points. For instance, you have the ECOWAS treaty that allows for free movement amongst countries across borders. That is to say that, for instance, if I'm traveling to Ghana now by road, I do not necessarily need a passport, an international passport. I can travel from here all the way to Ivory Coast without an international passport. The worst I could hold is an ID card recognized by maybe any of the countries, and that's all. And I have experimented with all of this to actually checkmate some of these to actually see for myself whether these things are real. And so those treaties that, for instance, the West Africa treaty that allows for free movement amongst West African countries have not also helped some of these countries. Now, when you're talking about insecurity, one of the things that really affect us, aside from trying to police the borders, smugglers have also understood that they could use various methodologies to ferry or transport drugs and firearms and ammunition into various countries. You remember the fall of Libya, for instance. Libya had a dump that was rich in the era of Gaddafi. At the fall of Gaddafi, the Sahel suffered because the dump was exposed, and firearms and ammunition from that dump, the armories, they were transported through the Sahel, and many of them were lodged in countries. Some of them were smuggled even into Nigeria. Most of them found their way into Nigeria to the hands of the non-state actors. Okay?
Yeah.
And how do they find their way? In most times, they come in through land borders. Although that is not to say that some of these firearms that fuel insecurity in most of these countries do not also come to the seaports or the airports. For instance, I'm sure you are aware that last week, WG displayed seizure of firearms that were recovered from some importers. I think the 2 arrests were made. That was Friday. On Thursday, Comptroller Shaibu Ahmadi also displayed, who is the controller of the Ogun State Command, Area 1, also displayed seizure of ammunition about 949 mm that were seized. And he talked about having been able to monitor the movement of those ammunition from the Republic of Benin that traveled through the road and through the land border, and then they didn't come through Lagos. They had to go to the command, that is the WG now. But because they had gotten intel, when I say intel, I mean intelligence report, and so they started monitoring the movement of those ammunition, 914 live ammunition that were coming into this country. Now, when they come into this country, who are the recipients? The non-state actors. And so, for instance, when you talk about insecurity, you are talking about banditry. Banditry includes armed robbery, kidnapping, and many other vices. But in Nigeria, basically, when you say banditry, people only loosely refer them to those they refer to as bandits who are now terrorists, who are engaged in kidnapping and demanding for ransom that have turned into a business venture. But banditry is not limited to kidnapping alone. Armed robbers are bandits. Okay? And then some other vices are under the umbrella of banditry. Now, all of these firearms that find their way into particularly these porous borders are actually traded with the non-state actors who use them to carry out nefarious and criminal activities in the country. So these are some of the problems with the porous borders, and the Nigerian customs, of course you are aware, is the security body license to check in movement of goods into and out of the country, whether land, air, or sea. And so the ones they are able to arrest, they arrest. The ones that beat these people, see, these cartels, these barons who bring in drugs and firearms into this country, they are so sophisticated that what they do, they try to do everything to beat both human and artificial intelligence. In most times, they beat the human and artificial intelligence. And so that is why there's what is called force compartment, which they build in vehicles, in containers. They use fruits. They hide all of this in fruit. Sometimes palm oil, sometimes groundnut oil, sometimes rice, sometimes beans, sometimes pepper, and all of that. They hide drugs. They hide firearms in all of this to try to beat checkpoints, and perhaps when they get to the border, sometimes you find they put stuff, they hide some in spare tires. Sometimes they build force compartments in vehicles. I'm sure you would have seen some vehicles they call firewall.
Yes.
That have so much force compartment. They are usually, you see a Toyota Camry, it will be looking like a truck. It's high from the ground. They even put some of these things in poultry food, like chicken, turkey, eggs, and the rest of them. Again, don't forget that this free movement amongst regional countries like the ECOWAS, for instance, we allow for free grazing. What that means that you can actually begin, a nomad can actually begin grazing from Chad, from Niger, from Cameroon, from Republic of Benin into Nigeria. I draw your attention to a time ago when one of the ministers, I guess, did say that some of the headers that were arrested, or that he alluded that some of the headers that are creating problems with farmers were not even Nigerians, that they didn't actually come from any of the states in Nigeria, that they grazed in from foreign land. That is because the ECOWAS treaty permits free movement of even grazing across our borders. And these animals, whether camels, whether cattle, whether goats, whether sheep, whether rams, in most times they carry back. You think they are logos of the shepherds or the headers, and sometimes they are supposed to be pretending to carry seeds for those same animals. Research has shown that many of them were even used to ferry in some of these small arms and light weapons, including drones.
Right.
Let me shock you. Do you know that the eagle is also used to transport drugs from one country to another? Eagle. And it will deliver to where you want it to deliver to.
Wow.
So, you see, when you talk about fueling insecurity, two things are used to fuel insecurity in any country. Drugs, the one you call a hard drug. There's nothing like a hard drugs. Drugs are drugs. That's number one. Number two, small arms and light weapons. There's so much proliferation of small arms and light weapons in Nigeria at the moment. So much, too much of it, not just Nigeria. Of course, research has also shown to us, or revealed to us. Even the UN has admitted that the United Nations, even the European Union, ECOWAS too, has discovered that the number of arms and ammunition in the hands of the non-state actors, in terms of number, far outweighs what you find with the state actors. And I'm sure you understood what I meant by the non-state actors and the state actors.
Of course.
And now, beyond that, we have also discovered that the non-state actors in most times are carrying very highly sophisticated firearms without control. Now, the UN has control of the kind of firearms that even the state actors are permitted to carry at given times. But the non-state actors don't have limitations. And so, those of them who sponsor them or who procure these firearms and ammunition for them, they try to get more sophisticated firearms and ammunition for them. And so the proliferation, the illicit circulation of firearms and ammunition now in circulation is so bad.
Right.
It has taken Nigeria too long a time to do disarmament and mopping and destruction of what is recovered.
Chief Darlington, please allow me for a moment, all right? For those of you who are just joining us, this is still the Situation Room, and we're talking about border porosity. That's what we're doing right this very moment, and I have the privilege of talking to security consultant Chief Darlington Umoru. At this point in the conversation, we're talking about the correlation between border porosity and the insecurity that we have in the country at this time. We're actually streaming the program live on our Facebook platform. That's facebook.com/mainland98.3 FM. You can join us as well, or just search Mainland FM and you immediately be connected with us on our streaming platform on Facebook. You can in fact start dropping your contributions and your submissions on the platform. When we open the phone lines, we will take your contribution. Chief Darlington, because of our time, I really want us to explore other aspects of this conversation as well, and I'm talking specifically about the food crisis in the country. It's unfortunate that, despite the tremendous amount of arable land that we have in the country, huge human capital resource, the country still battles with food unavailability and unaffordability. And aside from the insecurity that you have highlighted, that has kept farmers out of their farm, the farmers' headers clash, amongst other things, there's the undocumented amount of food export to neighboring countries. And in order to curtail this menace, people exporting food without wanting to pay their levies and their dues because they think they're going to get more money if they sell in neighboring countries, among other things, the federal government decided to shut the borders, and you highlighted that earlier. And this decision has left us with a ripple effect that is still being felt up until this very moment. So I want you to talk to us about, the fact that we have a decrease in local production of food, the decision of the federal government to shut the borders, and the incidence of smuggling in the country. Go ahead, Chief Darlington, please.
Well, the biggest problem we have that is bringing about food shortage is not even necessarily what we try to push to countries like Chad and Niger.
Right.
Apparently, if you recall, Mr. President, His Excellency President Bola Ahmed Tinubu recently opened the border between Nigeria and Niger. The border between Nigeria and Niger was shut not because of insecurity. It was shut because of the military coup d'etat that took place in Niger. That was a decision by ECOWAS, not even a decision by Mr. President of Nigeria. Okay, it was one of those measures used to mount pressure on Niger government to return governance to a democratically elected body. When they wanted the military to hands off, but that did not work. That did not work. The military did everything. In fact, what the military now did eventually is to pull out Niger from ECOWAS. So it's okay, we do not longer want to belong to this arrangement. Not just Niger, there are other countries who even said, okay, we don't want to belong to some of, particularly those countries that are currently operating military in governance. Many of them now say, no, we don't want to belong to regional arrangement again. It is only when we belong to this regional arrangement they begin to tell us about sanctions and all of that. That is for that. But recently, Mr. President opened that border because agreed some of the traders had this trading arrangement, where they push in fruits and all of that across our border to some of these countries where they get foreign exchange. But that has not grossly been responsible for the food shortage in Nigeria. That has also not been grossly responsible for the hike in prices of food products in Nigeria. I give it to you straight on, free of charge. Now, we have food baskets in Nigeria. When you're talking about the North Central, you talk about the Northwest and some part of the Northeast. So then what do you have? Insecurity has taken over all of these places. Just used to produce a lot of fruits, tomatoes, and the rest of that because of their climatic conditions. Just used to be one of the biggest food baskets from where food were transported particularly to the south and other parts of the nation. What do you have in Jos today? The problem of headers farmers has crippled food production in Jos. Come down to Benue State, another food basket from where yams are produced and sold to the other parts of the country. What do you have there again? You have the header farmers conflict situation that is also rocking Benue State. Today, the headers, the farmers are complaining that they are being kidnapped, they are being killed by the grazers. The grazers are complaining that the farmers have encroached on the grazing route originally provided by the map and the Nigerian nation arrangement. Grazers are supposed to have routes, but the herders are also complaining that the grazing routes in Nigeria have been taken over by farmers. And so when they go through that same route and they lead their animals to feed on whatever they find on those routes, they eventually get into farms. That is, we have seen situations where even the Buhari administration, the Jonathan administration, and where this administration, perhaps that is the continuation of the Buhari administration, I've tried as much as possible to resolve the head farmer situation.
Chief Darlington, I apologize. Please, I apologize. We're going to have to go on a break very briefly to take the headline news and a few commercials. It would be only 5 minutes thereabout, and we will reconnect with you immediately. I apologize. Please just stay with us 5 minutes and we'll be right back. This is still the Situation Room on Mainland 98.3 FM. We're talking border porosity with Chief Darlington Umoru, who's giving us insight into the matter. Stick around for the headline news. Right after the commercials that we have lined up, we'll continue with the conversation on the Situation Room. My name is Sage Babalola. Please stick around.
Mainland 98.3 FM. Don't touch the dial. 98.3 FM. Don't touch the dial.
Headline news on 98.3 Mainland FM.
Good evening. Headline news on Mainland 98.3 FM. My name is Omobola Sandra. Edwin Clark tells military, enough is enough. Don't take the law into your own hands in Okwama. Sanu and Nasu and Nats shot Unilag Gate over withheld salaries. NLC pickets Labour Party headquarters, demands Abure's removal. Nigerian lawmakers meet a Greek minister on way out of food crisis. Senate insists 30 billion naira ways and means must be recovered in full, demands explanation from CBN. On the foreign scene, Vietnamese president resigns amid political turmoil, raises concerns for foreign investors. And in sports minister Eno charges Falconets to defend crown against Ghana in African Games. That's the headline news on Mainland FM. Details at 5:30.
Mainland 98.3 FM, the sound of Lagos. The drama, the suspense, the emotions, the gang moments. Don't miss out on Nollywood movies and web series on YouTube with the YouTube Buffet plan from MTN. You can enjoy over 10 hours of Nollywood content made for you. Sharply dial *312*800# to activate the YouTube Buffet plan from MTN and start enjoying YouTube made for you.
To cook correct food, they always give me joy. That's why anytime I cook like this, I always season them with no cubes. Come add correct vegetables inside. Ugu, tatasheo, shombo, onions. No one I know they put. Now he make my pikin them. They always enjoy my cooking.
Daddy, I never will. I want more.
You see, all your food with correct vegetables. Come season them with no cubes for that to get delicious taste. Today, chop better.
Wait, isn't that an Alte jam?
Yeah, it enter, Abi.
Wait, oh, when did you start jamming Alte? What happened to Afro depression? Like, who put you on?
Oh yeah, dial Sophie's number. Now that's who put me on.
Share your vibe with Hello Tunes from Airtel. Dial *790# to enjoy free trial and pay later. Airtel, a reason to imagine.
To cook correct food, they always give me joy. That's why anytime I cook like this, I always season them with no cubes. Come add correct vegetables inside. Ugu, tatasheo, shombo, onions. No one I know they put. Now he make my pikin them. They always enjoy my cooking.
Daddy, I never will. I want more.
You see, all your food with correct vegetables. Come season them with no cubes for that to get delicious taste. Today, chop better.
The drama, the suspense, the emotions, the gang moments. Don't miss out on Nollywood movies and web series on YouTube with the YouTube Buffet plan from MTN. You can enjoy over 10 hours of Nollywood content made for you. Sharply dial *312*800# to activate the YouTube Buffet plan from MTN and start enjoying YouTube made for you. My country people, Travel lottery don come o. Shey you don hear of Japa Fly? Oya make I gist you. Japa Fly na lottery company wey go help you achieve that your dream vacation for that your dream location with small shikini money of 1,500 or 5,000 naira. You don stand chance to qualify. Whether you single, you get babe or get bobo or can't even get family. Japa Fly get a better package for you o. As you don get this informate, just imagine yourself for Dubai as you dey sip wine, dey enjoy yourself. Open your eye, make you sharply colors to Japa Rice. We go help you bring that dream come reality. Oya call us on 090-9000-0888. You fit send email play@japafly.com. You fit also visit our website www.japafly.com. You must be 18 and above to follow join play. Make una play responsible o. Terms and conditions apply. Japafly.com. Play and fly.
Attention Airtel customers. If your line has been blocked, then this is for you. Head to the nearest Airtel shop with your NIN. Our friendly staff will help you get your line back up and running. Don't let a blocked line keep you out of touch.
Airtel, a reason to imagine.
To cook correct food, they always give me joy. That's why anytime when I cook like this, I dey always season am with no cubes. Come add correct vegetables inside. Ugu, tatashe, shombo, onions. No one wey I no dey put. Na im make my pikin dem dey always enjoy my cooking.
Daddy, I never will I want more.
You see? Sama all your food with correct vegetables. Come season am with no cubes for that ogbonge delicious taste. Today, chop better.
My son, help me check this phone. I no know wetin junior press. E no dey work again.
Make I see. Mommy,
wetin happen?
They don block your line now.
Nobody like to chop blocking o. So if they don block you unto say you no link your NIN to your Airtel line, run kitikiti go any Airtel shop with your NIN to unblock your line today.
Airtel, a reason to imagine.
This is Mainland 98.3 FM, the sound of Lagos.
Things seem anxious and uncertain. I understand the hardship you face. I wish there were other ways, but there's not. If there were,
in our quest to bring to the table issue-based conversation around nationhood and development, we have made 4 to 5:30 p.m. Monday to Friday the perfect time to welcome you into the Situation Room as we continue to build the narrative about public service and accountability.
Mr. President, this Senate needs to know. Mr. President, this Senate needs to lend its voice to the plight of these people. Mr. President, there is nowhere I can say it except here. This is why I'm elected. If I cannot say these things on this floor, sir, I better resign and leave.
As elections give the citizens the chance to make their political decisions, constant demand for quality leadership from those they voted into office.
Look at us, man, there is nothing. We are starving. Tinubu should please do something.
It's also important to having a Nigeria of everyone's dream. Join WG=M소ɪᴜ as it takes to task seasoned analysts, opinion makers, business professionals, and politicians on issues around politics, policies, governance, and leadership. Every Monday to Friday from 4 to 5:30 p.m. on your super dial, Mainland 98.3 FM will welcome you next as we discuss the situations.
Welcome back. Thank you so much for staying with us. This is still the Situation Room on Mainland 98.3 FM, the sound of Lagos. The conversation is around border porosity in Nigeria. A lot of emphasis being placed on insecurity and food crisis in the country. We're trying to establish the correlation between our porous unmanned borders, the fact that we do not have strong borders, security frontiers in the country, and the implication that it has on us as a country. And of course, I do have the privilege of having joined me virtually for that conversation, security consultant Chief Darlington Umoru. And before we went on that break, he was trying to talk to us about how, as much as we would like to attribute the food unavailability and the unaffordability to our porous borders, is still largely around insecurity, which our border porosity have continued to exacerbate, and the farmer header crisis that have prevented farmers from being able to go to their farm, hence reducing our local production. Chief Darlington, thank you for staying with us. Please, I would like you to continue to establish the point you were making before we went on that break.
Well, I've talked largely about the fight, about the conflict between herders and farmers. And the basic one right now is that bandits and terrorists. When I say terrorists, I'm referring to Boko Haram and ISWAP. Have actually made it difficult for farmers to return to their farm. In the northeast, like where you have the Lake Chad River basin, for instance, where fishing takes place, we have had records. We have recorded times without number where fishermen who went to the Lake Chad to fish were slaughtered by the terrorists. And now, what the terrorists now do with some of those fishermen in that region, where we need to have plenty of different kinds of fish that come from the north, is that now they collect taxes from the fishermen before they go in there to fish. Now, failure to pay that, many of them have lost their lives. Beyond paying taxes before they are allowed to fish in that water, they are also, in most times, they are allowed to fish, and a large chunk of that fish is handed over to them aside from paying tax. Now, that is in the northeast. In the part of the northeast where you have farmers who cultivate the soil, the farmers are also made to pay taxes during cultivation, and then at the time they need to weed, and then when they come back to harvest, they also pay taxes again before they are allowed to harvest. And then beyond that, some of those farms, at the time those food crops are ready for harvest, whether bandits, what we have in the northeast are not really bandits, are the terrorists. That's where you find ISWAP, that's where you find Boko Haram. Okay, what they do sometimes, they steal such farms, harvest those crops, or make the farmer to harvest the crops and hand over to them. And then there's also the rustling, animal rustling by some of these terrorists in that segment. And they come down to northwest, where you have to move from Kebbi, Sokoto, Zamfara, Kaduna, and then Kano. You also, aside from Kano, from Kaduna, Katsina, you come down to Zamfara, and then before you reach Sokoto, the farmers are also made to pay before they cultivate the land, when they do planting, and then when they have to come to do harvest. They pay what seems like taxes to the bandits in form of cash, and then in form of food crops, and then in form of animals. And so, many of them have also been killed. Most of the farmers have also been killed because they have been accused by the terrorists for having given information to security agencies and the military to track them and ambush them. I take you back to last year, where about how many of them were slaughtered in their farms, in their numbers, particularly in the northwest axis. If you remember that, or if you recall that,
of course,
many of them were slaughtered in the farm, and then what the terrorists eventually gave as reason for doing what they did to those of them who went to farm was the fact that they were giving them away because they know their routes and they know when they move. Okay? Down to north, I talked about North Central, where you have the header issue, the farmer header issue, and I've talked to you about Plateau State, I've talked to you about Benue State, and then down to Niger State, and then maybe a little bit of Nasarawa State. And then Kogi here, Kogi that is very close by here. All of these are the problems that have ensured that one, most farmers cannot go to farm. Two, the few that can go to farm, they are under pressure or they are farming in fear. And so there are shortages of those food items, whether root crops, whether fruits, and the likes of them that were usually coming from the north including animals, because they also suffer a lot of animal rustling, like cattle rustling, sheep, goats, and the rest of them. So largely, the quantity of food stuff that used to come from the north, we no longer have all of that because the terrorists are taking over the desert areas, they are taking over the farm areas, and then a lot of fear has been infused into these farmers. Those of them, except for those of them who have the courage to face these people, are those who go to negotiate with them before they start farming and they are allowed to farm. So basically, it is less of what is taken out of the country that has affected what is circulating in the country. Nigeria at the time, under the past administration of Muhammadu Buhari, they wanted to try something. They tried to stop the importation or minimize or reduce the importation of rice into Nigeria. So that they do what they call local farming. And they asked farmers association to come together. They gave them seedlings, they gave them money as loan, and they said they should give to their members. They gave them fertilizers, that came from eastern part of Europe, like the Russian side. What's the name of this other country now that Russia is in war with?
Ukraine.
Ukraine. God bless you. Ukraine supplies more of flour products, wheat, and lots of fertilizers to us in this part of the world, for which our farmers need to ensure that they are able to boost their farming. But all of that now is affected by these terrorists and bandits who have occupied those places. In Kaduna now, you cannot talk about farming. It's out of it. In Zamfara now, you cannot talk about farming. It's out of it. And so where do you go to? Katsina, you cannot also talk about farming. It's out of it. All of these are in Northwest. And then if you go to the Northeast, you don't have much of bandits because the conflict status and state security arrangements are different among these three regions in the north. The Northeast is in the face of insecurity is different from what you find in Northwest. And what you find in Northwest is also different from what you find in the North Central. I just called some of those states, in most of these regions to you. And then down west, it is spreading down to down west. Now, if you take it from south, you move from Edo State that shares border with Kogi State. Farmers cannot go to farm in most of those places now because herders have also taken over the farmlands in those places. If you move from Opela down to Auchi, down to Agbede, and then Ewu, and the rest of them before you get to Benin, when you used to have a lot of pineapple fruits being taken to other parts of the country, these herders have taken over these places. Kidnappings are going on in those places. Killings are going on in those places as well.
Yes, Chief Darlington.
Down to the southeast.
Chief Darlington, please, because of our time, we have less than 10 minutes to leave the studio so that we can take phone calls as well. Maybe finally we should wrap things off by talking about the fact that, these neighboring countries, the relationship that we have with them, the countries that we share borders with, unfortunately unmanned borders. I remember when, the whole Niger crisis started and our government were trying to have conversations with Niger, and a lot of people are saying, why do you keep interfering in the security issues that happen in these border countries? Why are you actively involved? And they're trying to explain, we share borders with this country. If things go wrong, humanitarian, the reaction from Nigerians was that why is it that the federal government, our own government, are so
government of Nigeria, you mean?
Yes, the federal government of Nigeria are so engrossed with the security situation in border countries, and the explanation was that's what I'm trying to help you explain to us, because if we have a humanitarian crisis on our hand, we have a porous border. All of these people, all of the arms would find their way into the country. So I want you to talk to us about how do we go about relating with these border countries, the communities that border this country, against the backdrop of the ECOWAS treaty that you've highlighted, the legal and political policy implication, how do we protect the communities that border this country and also relate with this bordering country such that their security challenges do not spill into the country by means of our porous borders?
You have joint forces, joint security forces between countries, that patrol some of these borders. You also have country arrangements. Each country have their local arrangements. But one thing we must understand is that when people talk about why is Nigeria interested in what is happening in another country, they have forgotten the position of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu in the ECOWAS arrangement. And so when Tinubu is talking, our president is talking, he's not talking as the president of Nigeria. He's talking as a person who is at the helm of affairs of ECOWAS, particularly when they meet at the ECOWAS secretariat in Abuja. And so most of those decisions that are taken are related to Mr. President because he's the head. But even so, it is not that he is not interfering in what is happening in Niger or Chad or some other countries because he's the president of Nigeria. It is when the heads of state from ECOWAS meet and then they take decisions and then everything is the one that will make the pronouncement. So I think whoever is criticizing all of that should get that right. Now, whether we interfere in what is happening in those countries, like you rightly said, you made a very valid point. And when you talk about when there's crisis in some of those countries, aside from us having lots of many of the people who will run into this country, it will also give an opportunity to smugglers to bring in small arms and light weapons, which will not increase the proliferation of small arms and light weapons in Nigeria. I talked to you about the fall of Libya. Libya is a bit far from Nigeria, but the Sahel has provided that route for the dump, for the armory that fell in Libya, that it allows for the movement of those weapons, those equipment, all the way from Libya across those countries on the Sahel until they found their way into the northern part of the Nigeria and down. All of these are done by smugglers who are ready to take that. It will shock you to note this, I want to say now, that even the war between Russia and Ukraine, weapons can also be smuggled, because I saw something when I did the analysis of that crisis, that conflict. I saw where the Ukrainian government were only bringing out weapons and ammunition. They dump them. If you can use them, just come and pick. There was no armory record. There was no manager there to take records of who was taking what. All the assault rifles, you just come pick assault rifle, you go to the other end, you pick the number of magazines for the assault rifle that you want to use. That is talking about the ammo now, the ammunition to be used for this assault rifle. Now nobody takes record. You can fire, whether you're a trained person to handle that assault rifle or not. You just go there, pick. When it's exhausted, they bring out others. Now you'll be surprised that many of those who will be picking those things will be selling them to smugglers. Who will be prepared to smuggle those firearms to other countries. And then gradually they begin to find their way to where these criminals need them. We have too much of illicit firearms and ammunition circulating in Nigeria at the moment. That is why you have lots of this banditry. That is why you have lots of activities between herders and farmers. Even communal clashes are no longer fought with cutlasses and knives or clubs. Communal clashes now are fought with firearms. You can imagine why the communal clashes, the communal conflict we had between Bomadi and Ugeli South. Okwama and Okoloda, or whatever it's called, where they had to ambush military men, senior officer, a lieutenant colonel, 2 majors, a captain, another rank and file. They cornered them and took them out. That is to tell you that nobody is yet to be able to identify the kind of firepower they use to overpower those 17 army officers.
Right. Chief Darlington, thank you so very much. I would like you to still be here with us. I just want to announce to all of those listening to our conversation that they can be a part of the show. You can in fact call and tell us what you think about the conversations we've been having so far about border porosity. What is your position on the matter? What do you think we can actually do to ensure that we have less porous borders? How can we ensure security of these borders, the unmanned borders? What do we do? What kind of collaborations do we need to have? What sort of training do we need to give to our customs and immigration officers, amongst other things? These are the kind of conversations I want you to have with us as you call in. We might be able to take about 3 phone calls, but I will be more than happy to read the messages that you leave on Facebook. I still have Chief Darlington Umoru on the line, who would also be helping me engage with our callers. Let's take our first call for the evening. Hello, good evening to you. Thank you for calling.
Yes, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you, sir. Please, if you can, in a minute, I would appreciate it.
Yes, people in US are illegal immigrants.
Tell us your name, sir.
All over. My name is Andrew.
Welcome. Go ahead.
All over the world, we have illegal immigrants. The problem is the will to take decisions. If there is a will, there is a way. Even the borders that you say they are porous, what is the reason? Because people enter there. If you are in US, for example, and you are living there peacefully, you can stay there for 15, 20 years. But once you commit crime, they will fish you out. All these things that we are getting, all this NIN and all of that, what are they using them for? That our borders are porous everywhere, there is no security anywhere, people can't go to farm. So because of time, let me just,
Thank you.
end it here.
I appreciate you for your brevity. Thank you so very much. Let's take another phone call. Hello.
Yeah, good evening.
Yes, good evening to you, sir. Your name, where you're calling from?
This is Paul from Egbeda.
Go ahead, sir.
You see, just like the first caller said, there is no way you will not have an illegal immigrant into a country. But when crimes are committed by these individuals, what has the government done to make sure that those who commit these crimes are held? Okay, look at Lagos State now. Look at Okada. Even the areas that Okada were banned in Lagos State, you see these Nigerian boys, Chad boys, Malian boys, they are the one now in charge of Okada in the whole Lagos State. And any slightest thing, you see these people bring out their dagger and they just slaughter the person. And the government is just watching, doing nothing about it.
Thank you.
So these illegal immigrants are not checkmate by the government. And it's a big problem. It's a security.
Thank you very much. We appreciate you. Thank you for calling.
Hello?
Please turn down the volume on your radio. Good evening.
Hello.
Yes, I'm with you.
Yeah, good evening. Alabama is my name. We're from in Lagos.
All right, in a minute, please.
Yeah, very short. Look, we are in technology age. It's only the Western world that are making use of the technology. Is it because they are the one that produce this thing? That is why they know the value. Go to some of these our rulers' house or leaders' house, where you will find camera. Even before their 1, 2, 3 gates, you will find camera that will capture you from certain miles coming to their house. They can do that kind of camera anywhere as a surveillance in our borders. If we cannot use man, you understand? So they should use technology to save and protect our borders. This will help us save costs and also save lives. Good evening and God bless.
Good evening. Thank you so very much. Unfortunately, that is the last call that we can take for this evening. Chief Darlington Umoru, it's such an honor to have been able to speak to you about this. We appreciate your expertise on the matter, and I hope that another time we're able to have other conversations about the security situation in the country, the need for new policies, and of course the adoption of technology in assuring the safety of lives and property in the country.
Well, it's my pleasure here any day, anytime. One of my services to the country is what we are doing now.
Yes.
Is to talk about all of this we have mentioned, educate Nigerians on some of the things they really do not know about that is really happening. But when we have the time, we will be looking at these areas we just talked about, the use of technology to arresting insecurity and all of that. That's one thing one caller said there.
which makes a lot of sense, and that's what we'll be discussing artificial and human intelligence.
Exactly. We can have a part 2 of this next week, actually. The conversation on security never goes stale, but we are out of time. We have less than a minute to leave the studio for the next program. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us. Enjoy the rest of your evening.
My pleasure.
Yes. All right. Well, that's it for the Situation Room today. I sincerely apologize to all the callers. I know I need to fix up on giving more time for outside contribution, and I will do that. But please bear with me. All right. That's it for the Situation Room for today. We probably would have a part 2 of this conversation next week, depending, because new things happen every day. Thank you for your participation. The full bulletin of the news is going to be up next at 5:30 p.m. Don't go anywhere. Conversation continues on Mainland 98.3 FM. My name is Babalola. I'll talk to you some other time.